What up, fam? Hit that like, hit that subscribe. This is HUD Wednesday nights, Phillies postgame, but top free agents remaining for the Sixers. Let's talk about it.
I mean, how silly is that, man? We're talking about practice.
Struck them out.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you. Let the celebration begin.
Welcome in, everybody. This is HUD Wednesday nights, only on HUD Radio. Every Wednesday, we are brought to you by our good friends over at Baggio's Bread, located in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. Go check them out. Use promo code HUD Radio. Get 10% off your order. As always on Wednesday, Mike Mataraki, No Eaton, Heel Chrome, Tom Arnone, and we're missing some other guys. No Greg, no Luke, but we got a lot to talk about, obviously.
But I am on time this week.
Yeah, I didn't know we were giving credit for that.
I got out of the pool. I got out of the pool early this week. You know?
I'm glad you're able to get out of the pool in enough time.
Hey, he's on time, and the prima donnas don't work holidays.
Phillies, Cubs, post game thoughts. Noah's already unhappy. Top free agents remaining for the Sixers. What's next? Caleb Martin, Dorian Finney-Smith. Where are you going? That's an oral poll question. If any of them. Adding a 3-and-D wing like Caleb Martin and or Dorian Finney-Smith would renew your faith in Daryl Morey. Agree or disagree? Greg, I appreciate you writing our criteria tonight. You know what I mean? Like, I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and write this criteria tonight. Are you out of your mind? Like, you know what I mean? Like, are you like, who's agreeing to restore faith, renew faith? Went out and landed the biggest name in free agency. He brought back Tyrese Maxey, make sure that deal was inked up. He's already brought back Kelly Oubre. He brought back Andre Drummond. Right? Listen, Eric Gordon at this point of his career, like, it is what it is. It's a low risk, high reward type thing for you. It's a veteran. He can still shoot the three ball enough, right? But he's already done a lot of great things. It's not going to renew my faith. Would it make me more excited? Like, to know we're even deeper? Sure. Yeah, I would love Caleb Martin. I would love Dorian Finney-Smith. Either or. I'm good. Sign me up. But it's not going to renew my faith in Daryl. Period. Daryl's done a great job. Man, you give credit where credit's due. He's done a great job. Like, nobody can say he hasn't. Nobody can say he hasn't. And PG isn't my number one option, but he was the only option. And he's not a bad option. That's the thing. He's not a bad option. This doesn't rest on if Daryl Morey did a good enough job this offseason. I'm not giving execs ever outs, ever, in any sport. This ain't up to Daryl if he did a good enough job in the offseason. This is strictly up to one guy. And that's up to, is Joel Embiid healthy at the end of the year, into the postseason, for the entire postseason? That's all it's going to matter at the end of the day. It's not going to matter on anything else, no matter what he does. I guess we got to put a great team together, but none of the rest of it will matter. So I disagree. I think he's done a really good job this all season, and I don't really need my faith restored. I need him to finish the job, finish off these roster spots. And these names are great names that I would take in a heartbeat. But that's another conversation when we get into top remaining free agents. So what do you guys say?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I disagree because I think me and you specifically, Tom, over basically the tenure of Daryl Morey here, have been probably two of the biggest proponents of the work that he's done, right? I think he's taken a lot of flack for things that weren't even him. Like, you have people who bring up Tobias, which was done long before he was here, right? And a lot of other issues, people give him a hard time about the Ben Simmons situation. And with Ben Simmons, he just proved, like, it's so weird with Daryl Morey, right? Because people give him such a hard time. But at the end of the day, and we talked a little bit about this on Wednesday, right? This blank canvas that Luke talked about, right? Where this is the first time that Daryl Morey is truly building a team fully in the image of what his vision is. He came in, Doc was already here. He came in, he had the Ben Simmons problem. He went out, he took a shot with his guy Harden, but he also recognized that not only did that situation not work, he wasn't going to, just out of blind loyalty, extend him to a max extension for a guy that didn't deserve it, didn't show up when in game 6 and 7, or I know it was 7, I think it was 6, right? Because 5 he had a huge game. Like, he didn't extend the guy who did not deserve to have that kind of an extension, and he made the move. That is a tough move to make, right? Separated business and personal. When people didn't give him the credit to be able to do that, we talked about, he bought all the Rockets in and this and that. Listen, he took a shot, didn't work. He was still building off of something that was already here. But if you look at his track record, right, from basically Tyrese Maxey is his first real big move here. And then he moved Ben Simmons. He brought in other guys that I think were really, really crucial, in terms of the growth of Joel Embiid, the growth of a Tyrese Maxey. And the one key factor here, which is why Caleb Martin and Dorian Finney-Smith aren't going to be a deciding factor here, is when he tells you he's going to do something, he does it. And he's patient. He waited on Ben Simmons, turned that into an impossible situation, turned into a bunch of picks. Then he goes, and James Harden goes over to China and says, this guy sucks. And he tries to get in guys like Paul George's ear and say, there's no way you should ever go to Philadelphia. Daryl Morey sucks. Guess what he did? And I talked about this on Wednesday too, Tom, when we did our quick shot. He zeroed in on Paul George last year around the trade deadline when the rumors started coming out that Paul George was a very high likelihood that he may not return to L.A. A lot of reports come out that moment was when he said, that's the guy I'm going to target for next year. Had all the cap space, went out. There was one guy who was legitimately a max guy in this offseason. So it was either you hit the grand slam, it was a Matt Stairs situation. It's all or nothing. If you whiff on that, it doesn't get done. And he did what he's done since day one. He says he's going to do something. It may take longer than we expect because it's Philadelphia and we go crazy, but he gets it done. And he did that, and he went out and got Paul George. He bought back Andre Drummond, who we never wanted to see go to begin with. And Eric Gordon, I think, is a good addition. And obviously Kelly Oubre at a cheaper price. I'm not saying he got a ton of money. I think people expected he would get about $12, $13 million, which in their situation, if you get a max guy, could price you out of him. People thought he might get overpaid. And he came back 2 years, $8 million a year. I mean, to me, it's a tremendous offseason. Daryl Morey solidified, if anything, himself this offseason. This is now the team. Now, the last thing I'll say here, this is now where we say, Daryl, this is your team now. This is where now he has to show the results with what has been put together and prove why he's considered one of, if not the best executive in the NBA.
I'll go ahead. I disagree with the poll wholeheartedly. I mean, do I love Daryl Morey? No. But I'll tell you what, he's a hell of a lot better than what we had before he came. I mean, do we remember Twittergate with Brian Colangelo? All right. Do we remember Sam Hinkie's nonsense, losing on purpose? All right. And the whole process bullshit. I mean, look,
I'll say this. If you were patient with Hinkie, you might have had a title by now. The league forced him out. Now, I don't think the organization did.
True. And I get when correct me if I'm wrong, when Jerry Colangelo, I know he wasn't the GM correct way back when, but he was part of the Sixers front office. Wasn't he actually employed by the league somewhat there?
He was. And then his son ended up taking over, Brian Colangelo. Gotcha.
And then the whole fake Twitter account nonsense and all that. Yeah. So, right. I mean, and 60 plus lost seasons and them, shitting themselves, basically from Halloween to April. So, look, no, we haven't gotten out of the second round, but I'll tell you what, you bring in Paul George. He's not what he was 10 years ago, but I still think he has some game left. And to Tom's point earlier, it's all about Joel Embiid staying healthy. And quite frankly, secondarily, it's about Paul George staying healthy too. and he's been bit with the injury bug off and on in his career. So if those two can stay healthy and Maxey can be what he was last year and the other supporting cast kind of come together, this team has a real shot to do something in the East.
So to piggyback off you real quick there, Noah, so, the thing with Paul George, listen, the injury history is what it is, right?
Right.
But people like to point to contract year. That's why he played so many games and this and that. So did Clay. Clay came into a contract year with a lot to prove to the Warriors, where they basically said, we don't know if you're worth that money. And he had everything to gain by having a huge year. So this whole contract, in the NBA specifically, I don't know that I buy the contract yet. I do think in baseball and football you tend to see it way more often. But in terms of that, there's other things that people who are around Paul George say. The way he conditions his body and takes care of himself as he's getting older is almost better than he did when he was younger. And that gives me a little bit more hope in terms of his health, that maybe last year was a sign of where he's at in his life now in terms of how he takes care of himself.
Yeah, I mean, no, totally agree. And I honestly, I think, we've got a puncher's chance. I mean, the Celtics are still the Celtics. I mean, let's face it. I would have to say, if we went with a way too early prognostication of next season, I would say the Celtics are the favorites in the East, right? But there's no reason to think that if your key pieces, obviously Embiid being the most important, stay healthy, there's no reason to think they can't be a top 3 seed and make a run.
Yeah. No, they should be. And we'll talk about that, obviously, throughout the show, too. But they should be. Mike, what do you say to the poll?
So I'm going to disagree with the poll. And Caleb Martin and Dorian Finney-Smith are great names. They're great complementary pieces. But if you look at Daryl Morey over the last, say, 2 weeks, okay? And I'll even take Paul George out of the equation for a minute. You let Tobias Harris walk. And for as nice of a guy as Tobias Harris was, as great of a teammate as he was, he's just not a fit. He's just not a fit here any longer. And letting him walk, frankly, is addition by subtraction. Okay? So that's the first piece. You drafted 2 guys that were graded 8 to 10 positions higher than where you drafted them. You drafted a guy who, in McCain, who is a straight up dog. Like, people don't like him because he's got personality and he does the TikTok thing and whatnot. Guy on the court is a straight up dog.
Younger Buddy Hield.
Yeah, exactly. Chrome, I think that's a great comparison. You go out and you get Andre Drummond. You get Eric Gordon. You extend Maxey. Every one of those moves is making this team better. Now you go out and you get the max guy, the Paul George. Now, would this offseason have been a success if they didn't get him? There's a lot of fans that will say no. They had to go out and they had to get the max guy. But even if you take that max guy out of the equation, every move that he's made so far this offseason was an improvement over where this team was when they walked off the floor last. Then you go add that max guy, and now all of a sudden, to Noah's point, you're top 3 in the East. So, I take my shots at Daryl Morey, and I have a little bit of fun with it, but I have no complaints about anything that he's done so far this offseason.
No, it's well said. And this is, what we expected and what we hired him to do. But, a lot of great points because of what they did. And we talked about it last Wednesday on draft night. Like they have 2 ways. They have 2 ways to go about this. They're not just in win now mode. Yes, they are because of Embiid, but you're also in win in the future mode too with Maxey. So you can have the best of both worlds where you can use your picks. You can develop young players while you're still trying to win. It's because you have that flexibility to have a guy like Embiid. If he's on the court, they're winning 50-plus games. Just with him. Just with Joel Embiid, they're a 50-plus win team and a top 4 seed in the East. just with him. This is helps you put it over the top a little bit more. But now you can draft young players and allow your player development team to do their job, right? And obviously the kid has to do their job, most importantly. But you allow that, and you draft talented guys and guys who show they can play at the college level, right? And you're willing to hold on to guys for a minute and not move them away right away. Look, listen, you can have it both ways. You can have we got a young star too. So yeah, if we don't win in Embiid's time, it doesn't mean we can't win in Maxey's. Right. So I think that's usually most teams don't have that. Right. Most organizations don't have that. It's like it's a tough one to find.
I think too, Tom, to your point, right? So we touched on it a little bit last week, but when you look at now we've seen more happen, right? Since last week when the Sixers drafted McCain, there was, obviously the nonsensical stuff about it. I don't care about off the court. I want to know what you do on the court. And I look at this kid. He's played for a big program. He's played in the tournament. He's literally done things that rookies haven't. He's put up like rookie record numbers in the tournament. And I look at him and I see him. And again, I saw Buddy Hield's name come up in the chat tonight. This kid's a younger Buddy Hield. He's a catch and shoot guy, and he has a quick release, right? And we talked about last week about why did this team lose? They didn't have somebody that could knock down shots, and they didn't have somebody that could rebound outside of Joel Embiid, right? A hobbled Joel Embiid is that. So what does Daryl Morey go? And you guys, right? Take PG out of the equation. It's hard to do that because a wing is so important. Find the perfect wing, by the way.
Right.
But even if we're taking that out of the equation, right? Nico Batum, that I appreciate the time we have. He made a family decision. I can't knock that. He went back home to LA to be with his family. I like Eric Gordon because I'm looking at leadership here, right? In terms of age, leadership. He's played a lot of years in the league and played at a high level. So I like that addition. But I look at it and what killed you? Shooting, rebounding. So you go out and you get a guy who's one of the best rebounders in the game, a guy that can go out and play 14 minutes to get you 21 rebounds, 20 rebounds. And then you go out and you get a kid who comes out of college who has such a quick release and shoots at a high percentage. You address two of your needs. And that was your biggest needs. And that's the thing that I think people just don't want to give credit for. Like, I don't care if the kid paints his nails. As long as those fingertips are dropping buckets and we're getting abroad, I don't care. And Daryl Morey has proven at this point so far that when he looks at a young, talented kid that works hard, he has a really good way of evaluating these young talents and finding them later in the draft outside of the lottery. So I have faith in him and what he's doing. And I think, to your point again, Tom, this is not just moves for now, it's moves for the future. But now you go and get PG, and obviously these next 2 years, you're all in. If not, though, it's not hopeless going beyond that. And that's what I think is really important to remembering.
Well, Chrome, I think one thing that you hit on there that's really, really important is that if you go back and you look at the end of that Knicks series, Maxey had that one game where he just went absolutely bonkers and kept the Sixers in the series. And what did the Knicks do the next game? They basically said there's no one else on this floor besides Embiid and Maxey that can beat us. So they doubled Joel, and then they ran two guys at Maxey. 30 feet from the basket, they were running two guys at him. And there wasn't anyone that he could get the ball to that was going to be an adept ball handler or be able to initiate the offense. Now they have that. And they have it twice over with, McCain, who people think that he's not going to be a contributor his rookie year. He played better in the tournament than he did in the regular season. He's a big game player. So you can facilitate through him. You can facilitate through Paul George. And then Embiid, gets that mid-range game going. And all of a sudden, this team is ridiculous. So, I think you've hit on two really, really key points there.
You're muted, Tom.
You're muted, Tommy.
You don't need a big three to win, but you sure as heck need guys that are respected around the league to win too. When you talk about teams, defending you, and you need certain fits to work, and the more spacing you can create, the better. So teams can't do that. So teams can't run guys at Maxey or Embiid consistently. It doesn't mean they won't. Like, the guys are going to get hot at times where they're going to do that. But now, do you have more trust in, I hate bringing up the two, but these are the two max money guys. Do you have more trust in Paul George to score? Or do you have more trust in Tobias Harris to do that when it's really put at their feet? And I've praised Tobias plenty, and I've been hard on Tobias plenty. But that's not up for debate. Like, I know Paul George hasn't been the best postseason player ever, but he's also not terrible.
I'll tell you what.
Like, it's also not the worst stats I've ever looked at. Like,
I'll tell you what,
it's just not. It's just not. Like, has he won? No. But like, we're gonna count the Clippers' failures all on him now.
You know
what
Paul George has done? You know what Paul George has done that Joel Embiid and these guys haven't? It's been to 3 conference finals. So we could sit here and say he hasn't done this and he hasn't done that, but he's led 3 teams to conference finals.
No,
and
you're right.
He was a part of that with the Clippers. Now, was he great in that conference finals? No, but he got them to there, and he was a crucial part in that playoff run up until that point. And I think that's a huge factor you have to put it. And to your point too, when we talk about spreading the floor and how important, like, how many times do you hear it now? In today's NBA, the wing is almost the key to everything. Because if you got a big man and you got a point guard with the ball in his hands, that wing, like, we thought Tobias was going to be that, because we thought he was going to be the guy to spread the floor. And at times he was. He just couldn't do it consistently. But Paul George, and I'll say this even over Jimmy Butler, because as much as I love Jimmy Butler, and he could shoot the lights out at some points, he's a guy that at times needs the ball in his hands. But how this team is constructed today, at the time we had him, he fit perfectly. But as the team is constructed today, and with the progression of Tyrese Maxey having the ball in his hands and facilitating, there is no better player, even over Jimmy Butler, than Paul George in the NBA to fit these 2 specific players over the next 2 to 3 years. And that's why I think got lost in translation over these last few weeks, where we've debated, is Paul George a fit or he's not? He's actually the ideal fit of a player.
Mm-hmm.
Still.
Bernard says, appreciate the super chat, brother. Bernard McCoy says, fellas, it's all on Embiid. If he loses 20 pounds, passes on the Olympics, and becomes a part-time vegan, we will win the chip. Wishful thinking. That's a lot going on there.
So that's an interesting point, though, because I don't actually want him to skip the Olympics. I want him to play.
I want him to play it too.
I want him to play because they're going to force him to get in shape. And I want him to be around those other great players and get that mindset through osmosis,
That's what's been lost in translation, Mike.
We said that did we say that Sunday? Maybe I said it Sunday.
I think it was Sunday you guys talked about.
It's so funny. That's the same exact thing we talked about. I was like, actually do something different. Play all summer. You know what I mean? Like, get yourself in shape. Like, let's see if, like, the conditioning helps your body more than it hurts your body. And Bernard, I got no problem with him dropping 20. For a big guy like him, 20 ain't going to show like that.
Takes a little stress off the knees, though.
Yeah, it does. And I think that he's done a better job with his body. But I guess there's always more he could probably do, I'm sure. But listen, I'm good with him trying anything different. Play this summer.
But I agree with you, and I think there's 2 points to that, because I agree with Mike, because him getting a taste of that high level, competitive, deep run, if he gets that gold medal, that's a taste of what a championship tastes like, right?
Mm-hmm.
That drives the hunger a little bit. And on the other side to what you were talking about, Tom, I'll go to a reference I could throw out there real well. Albert Pujols, that last season he played, he went down and played in the Dominican all off season, right? And he was a guy who was broken down for years. Guess what? It helped him out with his conditioning that last year that got him over 700 home runs. So sometimes it does help guys. I'm not saying that you need to necessarily do it every season, but some of these, LeBron, look at LeBron. LeBron has like competitive workouts at high levels with guys in the offseason. And look what he's doing at 39, almost 40 years old. Like, just because they're older doesn't mean they can't work out and do that. Sometimes that constant conditioning keeps their body, keeps the blood flowing, and keeps things going at a high level. So I'm all for Embiid playing in the Olympics at this point.
Keeps them younger longer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll put you guys in the Wayback Machine and take you back to the Dream Team. Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley was a star in the NBA. He played on the Dream Team, and he came back. He was a superstar. He got around that greatness, and it motivated him. And he learned what it took to take that next step and become a superstar.
I think that's so important, especially when
I think MJ helped him a shit ton.
Oh, no doubt, Noah. No doubt.
Oh, no question about it. And the thing with Embiid is, like, if you think about it, he's like a younger, older player because of like his path to the NBA, right? And his path to even picking up a basketball. But better yet, like, he doesn't know anything besides like 1 year of Kentucky, right? Like, he doesn't know, or 1 year of Kansas, sorry. But he doesn't know blue blood. We're good. But he doesn't know anything.
Rock chalk.
Yeah, we're good.
No, he was at Kentucky, wasn't he?
No.
Okay.
Maxey?
Maxey was
we're talking about Joel.
Oh,
yeah,
my
Maxey.
bad.
Joel
All
was
right. Yeah, my bad.
But either way, so I don't totally lose this one. He hasn't been around it like a lot of like winning and great players. He just hasn't. He hasn't. So like, I don't know how that hurts him. Besides him just getting hurt, like besides him just getting hurt, I don't know how that hurts him even a little bit. Because if it doesn't help you, well, then we got bigger problems. But I mean, he's a guy who's gotten better every year on his own, right? Just by his 1-2. So I gotta imagine going around those guys like you're talking about. It's just, if it doesn't get your juices going in your loins a little, then we got to check blood flow. If you don't got a little 6 to midnight getting around that, and that doesn't juice you up, then we got to check blood flow.
Yeah, if you don't get geeked about a gold medal, forget about it.
Yeah.
Well, let's not forget. I mean, MJ, he didn't win his first chip until what, 29, I believe?
He was older. I mean, he was close.
Right.
He's not 30 yet.
I think he was 29, 20 or 20. So, I mean, my point is, I mean, it's not like he came right out of the gate winning chips either. So, I mean, it's
learning how to win is hard. Learning how to win at the highest level is hard. It's not easy.
Look, I love Nick Nurse. He's not Phil Jackson. Come on, Noah.
No, but
I hear you, but
I'm real excited though, like to see. Honestly,
I didn't even catch on that. God damn.
I am very excited though, right? We know about Nick's creativeness in terms of the offense. Have the asset now that he has, and honestly, even with a young kid like McCain, utilizing him and how he could fit in and maybe contribute this year, even, I'm very excited to see what he does with all of these pieces, because he is one of the great offensive creative minds in the NBA today at the head coaching ranks.
Yeah, and I mean, it'll be tough to play Maxey and McCain together for long stretches of time just because the backcourt will be so small. But they can do it because Maxey has such elite speed and McCain defends bigger than he is. I mean, and you pointed it out earlier, Chrome, the fact that, not only is he a great shooter, but for a guy his size, he rebounds so well. So, do you worry about having two guys in the backcourt at the same time that are, under 6'4"? Sure, a little bit. But do they have so much offensive firepower and do so many other things well that you can get away with it for stretches? Absolutely.
But I think that's what's important about bringing back a Kelly Oubre, not just on a 1 year, but a 2 year deal, right? Because you bring Kelly Oubre back, and you don't need to see a whole lot of that. So you have basically the next 2 years for McCain to really develop as the 2 guard, right? And a guy like, I don't know if they'll bring Kyle Lowry back or not, but, having, a guy like an Eric Gordon, I know he's not a point guard, but he's a guy who can find guys on the court. He's a veteran who knows how to find the open man on the court. Having these veteran guys on the second unit with him, I think it's going to be really crucial for his development so that he can find his spots, find his rhythm, find his game at the NBA level. So that way, 2 years from now, when Tom talks about not just a draft pick for now, but somebody that when Embiid is on those twilight years and moving on, a guy that could be a piece with a Tyrese Maxey, that they'll be able to work that out over the next couple of years. But he can still contribute now on that second unit as long as they fill those spots left with good veteran presence that can help this kid come.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's another factor here too. And you mentioned Kyle Lowry. I think signing Eric Gordon means that Kyle Lowry is probably done here.
It could. I kind of feel like I could see him going to New York.
Yeah, but there's one piece of this that I think and I don't know if this is a long shot, but I look at a guy like Eric Gordon and I look at who the Sixers currently have on their roster that could use a guy like Eric Gordon to learn from. And to me, that's Ricky Council. I think, I think Ricky Council is a guy that, Nick Nurse and his coaching staff have been trying to develop, and they're bringing him on a little bit. And you look at his game and you look at Eric Gordon's game when Eric Gordon was in his prime, very similar type of game. And if they can bring in a guy like Gordon and have Ricky Council learn from him and become a player in this league, even better.
Yeah, I think the mix is really good too. I think the mix that they're putting together is really good. And Marcus Stewart says he's 6'2", just like Melton was. Yeah, and Melton played bigger than 6'2" as well. So, like Mike said, you're not going to leave him. You can't leave him on the court all the time together, but maybe you can. Who knows, right? Especially with your size with a guy like Embiid. So it all depends on what your four do. How big is your four play, right? This stuff we don't know yet. We got another super chat. Riaz says, "Love the show, guys. Any chance you guys think Miles Bridges will come from Charlotte on a 1-year deal like Oubre with a chance to win a title and bump up his value due to his court issues?"
I don't hate that name.
I don't want to touch it. I don't. I think there's a certain thing that's happening here. We've done I know it's different strokes, but I feel like every time we bring a guy in that's a character issue, it implodes with this specific organization. It's not like the Eagles when you had Kelsey and Johnson who could keep some of these guys in line. In Philadelphia, on the basketball court, whenever there's this kind of thing, these kinds of background issues, it seems to affect the team. I don't think they need to go there. Maybe if it's September like Oubre was and he's sitting there and they need to fill spots, then I'll entertain it. But if you're asking me today, I think there's going to be other options out there. It sounds like Caleb Martin. I did see this after we kind of put this criteria together. There's a couple of NBA blogs out there that have kind of gone under the radar but have nailed almost all the free agency. There are starting to be reports that Caleb Martin is a very likely lock for the Sixers to end up acquiring. So I don't know that I want to touch Miles Bridges at this point. I'm not there yet. I feel like if I'm going there, I'm desperate.
Yeah, I don't hate the name, but I'm not going after him aggressively. He's a Whit Merrifield for me. If he's there at the end of training camp, yeah, maybe.
September, like Oubre. If he's still sitting there, then yeah, why not? But I'm not there yet. I can't get there.
Yeah, I'm not.
Oh, go ahead, Tom. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just not. I'm not there. I'm not there either. I mean, like before the off the court issues, yeah. I mean, super talented. I don't know. I mean, it's you got to feel like you said. You got to feel like you got the team in place to be able to bring that in, right? And if you feel like you have that, then all credit to you.
There's so much going on with this team already, and there's been so many drastic changes. Do we want to bring in something that's that big of a distraction? I don't know.
Thanks, Johnny.
Bona. I did want to just add on real quick to your guys' point when you're talking about Bona, you're talking about young guys. I think Marcus Morris is a real possibility of coming back to Philadelphia as well, which I know, Tom, you're all for, like me. I look at Bona, right? And we're talking about developing Eric Gordon being good for certain guys. I think Bona, if he's sitting there with a guy like a Drummond, a guy like Embiid, and then you bring in like a guy like a Marcus Morris, like what a learning tree that is. Mike, you know what I'm talking about, the learning tree. What a learning tree that is to sit under. In terms of being a young guy with a lot of talent, especially a late draft pick, like a second round guy who could really surprise a lot of people.
So will we call him Big Bill?
He might be Big Bill.
Big Bill of the learning tree.
And Thomas says, I like Caleb Martin, but for some reason, all the Heat role players fall off after they leave Miami. What I'll say to that, and make sure you guys hit the like, subscribe, follow if you haven't already, turn your notifications on. So what we'll say to that is those guys sort of went other places to be more than role players. They didn't go to places. They went to places with big money. Like if you look at Max Strus, right? Like he went to Cleveland, right? That's a lot. He got good money to go there, right? If you're just using one example of a guy that had success in Miami, but I won't. He's not going to get paid that kind of money where he can really fall off. And arguably, there's a lot more talent too. So,
and I would argue too, right? Like Kyle Lowry, by the time he came here, he wasn't like a featured act. He was a role player at that point, right? And everything you hear is how key he was to be a guy that won a championship under the head coach that Tyrese Maxey is now playing for and developing under was very crucial for his development. And I thought his role he overproduced in terms of, you guys remember, Tom, I know you do. When Kyle Lowry's name was thrown out there as a possibility coming here, I mean, the chat, you would think it was a bunch of Eeyores and the sky was falling. He comes here, and I thought he was a bright light. He didn't try to be more than he was. He came here. He was a contributor off the bench. He distributed the ball well. I thought he played well in the playoffs, made big plays. And so I would look at him as the counter argument to that. There are guys that come out of Miami. It just depends on, like you said, like certain guys got paid to be more because of what they produce, and they thought they would be more and just didn't pan out that way.
Chrome, that's your answer right there. And that's not unique to Miami. There are hundreds of guys around the league over the last decade who have been a role player on one team, have parlayed that into big money to go somewhere else, and it hasn't worked out the way.
Tobias Harris.
Yeah, exactly. Tobias Harris. There is example 1A, Tobias Harris. But it happens all over the league. It's not unique to Miami.
No, it happens everywhere. It happens after teams go to the Super Bowl and they pluck guys and pay them too much money, and those guys don't pan out because they're in a bigger role. Like, it happens all the time.
Bo Allen.
Yeah, it happens all the time, right? Bo Allen's a great one. It happens all the time that you go grab their backup thinking like, oh, okay. And that guy starts getting, real snaps or real opportunities on the court, and they don't have the same success. And that doesn't mean the guy's a bad player. It just means, hey, you took the money. Good job. You know what I mean? Take the money, run with it. Run with it when you can get it, for sure. But
grab that bag and go.
I'll make a bold statement here. I like making bold statements. I really don't give a shit about the Boston Celtics. It's hard to repeat in this league. It just is. So can they? Sure. But their chances of repeating are harder than winning the first one, in my opinion. So not their first one, obviously.
Since what, 16 or 17?
Yeah, it's been a minute. It's hard to do. Not saying if there's somebody who could do it, it would be them. They're built to do it again. Let everybody understand that. They're built to do it again. Doesn't mean I'm putting them in my rearview mirror. They're my daddy right now. So of course I'm not. But I'm telling people, if he continues with not this kind of all-season with splash moves, but the right fits in here, we're just as good as them. We're just as good as them. I don't care what anybody says. We're just as good as them. Talent-wise, we're just as good as them. We almost are, and our roster isn't finished yet. Like, it's hard to say we're not as talented as the Boston Celtics. It's almost hard to say that. I feel like if people in the chat say that out loud, you're like, are they not? Like, right? You start saying, oh, maybe, start saying to yourself, oh, it might be closer than you think it is.
Well,
start matching it up.
To your point, Tom, how many people thought that if the Sixers could just get by the Knicks, they were going to be a problem for the Celtics?
Yeah.
And now the Sixers are better. So what you're saying makes sense. And you're not wrong. It's really, really hard to repeat in the NBA these days. But I almost think that if you're a team that is in sort of that, who do we target to be able to get to the top of the East? I think you got to build to be able to beat a team like New York and understand that if you're built to beat New York, you're going to be real, real competitive with Boston.
Yep. Especially when you're as talented as they are. CPCs, the differences they're deeper. Well, I mean, are they that much deeper than we are right now? Our roster's not even done?
Yeah, they're deeper right now. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, our roster's not finished.
Well, I think too, right? The thing about New York, and I've talked about this a lot, Tom, the new CBA is changing the league, right? So New York is kind of trying to get ahead of the curve for the next 5 years to build their team the way the new CBA is basically trying to get all teams to construct their league. Break up super teams, break up big threes, 2 max guys and a bunch of role players. And we talked about, I think that's why you saw so much given up for Mikal Bridges.
Mikal, yeah.
So I think that's why, to the point you're making, that's the team I think you look at where if we're looking to keep this rolling, that's going to be the team you're going to be eventually chasing, right? Boston's been the monkey on our back for years at this point. And to what you said, Tom, maybe they don't win it this year. Maybe Boston wins another one next year. They're built to win for the next few years as well. But they got a lot of big contracts coming up as well. They just extended Derek White. Obviously, Jason Tatum's going to be the highest paid player in NBA history at this point. And they just obviously gave Jaylen Brown a big contract. They have Porzingis. They're going to be at a point where this new CBA is going to hurt them. They're going to have to eventually move on from somebody in some kind of a trade. So Boston, they're good for the next year, 2 years, maybe even 3. But after that, they're going to be really fighting against what the league is putting in place. So I think that's spot on. New York is the team at this point you really want to position yourself if you're looking to sustain a run beyond the next year or two.
Yeah, I mean, any of those teams, right? And I think you got to put yourself against all of them because, obviously Boston's still going to have those 2 guys, right?
Yeah.
And those 2 guys, stir a drink there, right?
Yeah, I don't think I don't think New York is quite I think we're going to be ahead of New York the next year or two, right? But I think what New York is being smart for is they are building it so that 3 years from now, they got guys locked in. They got it locked in smart, like cap friendly, team friendly, and they have assets as well to where that's going to be the team we're going to look at and be like, shit, like we're chasing New York at this point.
Oh, yeah, I don't disagree with you. I'm always chasing the daddy until we actually beat them. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm always going to put them as like they're the big dog right now, and especially for us because we haven't been able to beat them. So it's even more.
Yeah. Meanwhile, no Turner, no Schwarber, no Real Muto. Ho hum, win another series.
That's all they do.
I don't want to get too like tied up in this like chasing Boston thing because everybody's like, oh my God, Boston's built to win the next whatever. They said it last year about the Nuggets. Everybody's the flavor of them. I'm not saying they're not tremendously built, but everybody thought the Nuggets were the next dynasty 11 months ago.
Right.
And that's how it works. Yep. That's why it's hard to win back to back. It's hard for these guys to go, do that again. It's almost impossible. There's just still what my point is with them is I think we're better than them, but they're built for a minute. They're not like, and when I mean a minute, like they're built for a while. When
that's like that's like a whole show right there. Like can you even have a dynasty anymore in professional sports?
Not with the way the new CBA is built. Well, in NBA terms, I don't believe you. I think the NFL is so tough. I mean, what New England did is almost unprecedented. But
Kansas City's probably the closest thing right now.
Yeah, it's tough. Maybe hockey. I feel like hockey's like the one league maybe there is a chance, although their playoffs are always insane. But like baseball, I think they've made it almost impossible at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know that anybody can do it in the NFL either.
Chiefs
Same thing
are.
with that. The new CBA is taking that out. Yes, before this year, next year, yeah, I think it was possible. So the NHL is really the only league I look at that. Like, yeah, if you hit on a bunch of draft picks, right, like 2-3 years in a row, and they come up around the same, like within the same year and a half, you could really build something special and knock off 2 or 3 cups in a 5-6 year span.
Yeah. I think you still can do it in basketball. Like, again, you have to
Just
almost.
so hard though, because the Dynasty is like 3 titles in like 5 years. That's so hard in the NBA.
I would say 3 and 6. 3 and 6 in today's
yeah,
world.
yeah,
Maybe like 3 and 7, maybe 3 and 7. You're still in the depending on how many finals you go to.
Or even if just making conference finals within that period of time.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yep, you're still on the doorstep, even though you might not have won every one of them, whatever. But
well, I think it's that, and Chrome. I absolutely agree with the CBAs, and I also think, and Tommy, you and I have talked about this. I don't know if you're still on that same page, but the way that TV is now, and the playoffs, like for TV purposes, they get so drawn out that you get teams that get eliminated in the first round, and their offseason is 2 months longer than the league champions. And there's absolutely something to be said for guys like, they're not even recovered from, their championship run. And now all of a sudden training camp has started.
Yeah.
It's terrible. I mean, the NBA finals, listen, I remember the days where your home games back to back.
Yep.
Then you had a travel day. These like 2 days in between, like that was atrocious to watch. And I get it. You want to have the highest competitive this and that, whatever. They've done it since the beginning of time. That's why I with baseball, I hate the fact that guys don't go 100 pitches anymore. They go whatever, this and that, or 115 pitches.
Yeah,
They've done it since the
that
beginning
drives me nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
They're
even
still getting hurt. They're still getting hurt at an alarming rate. Sorry, Crow.
No, I get it. And the whole thing now is there's so much money tied into everything that they don't – baseball, it's the contracts, and it's particularly with the NBA, it's the TV contracts. They want to give as much recovery time to the superstars so the most – the top talented guys are on the court. And I get it, but at the same time, like – Jesus Christ, why are the playoffs like 2 months? That's ridiculous.
It's like these guys, especially the starting pick. So, well, there you go. I mean, they'll never do that, of course. I know they'll never do that though because of money. I mean, to be honest, it's ridiculous.
It goes both ways, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, there used to be a time.
I hear you.
Yeah, there used to be a time though where the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup playoffs were over by Memorial Day. Now they're stretching into late June. The baseball
especially the NHL,
yeah. I mean, the baseball playoffs were over by Halloween. Now we routinely have World Series games in November.
Like, oddly enough, I can make an excuse for the NHL because they've kind of been the stepchild of the top 4 professional sports.
Fair.
So in terms of if we're getting back onto major markets now or major networks at this point, and we want to make sure now as we continue to regrow our league, we want the top talent on the ice. I kind of get why they would do it because their alternatives are slim to none, right? Like they need to market that league, and they're doing a tremendous job over the last 3 years, by the way. But like again with the NBA, like I don't know, I don't remember a whole ton of times where when they did the 2 home games. Off day in between 2 home games. I don't remember a ton of times where the biggest stars were missing the playoff series. Like if there's a track record where a bunch of them are missing a bunch of time, then yeah, maybe over like 6 years you got guys, your first or second star on teams are missing time. I get it, but I had not seen that.
Well, and if your stars are missing time, you're probably not making it that far.
You're absolutely right.
What's up, Sean? He said he disagrees with a poll, which you can still vote on. Let us know.
Poor Greg. Everyone disagrees to his poll.
Well, at the beginning of the poll, it wasn't. we did, but a lot of the chat was not early on. Yeah, let's see what the numbers are now. So
Caleb Martin and Dorian Finney-Smith were trending on social media.
no, Greg does a great job. We're not mad at Greg. Well, my faith in Daryl, but again, 79% agree with Greg. So they're throwing an apology tour for Greg here. And not saying Greg agrees with his poll he made up, right? He might disagree. With it. But 79% are in Greg's corner here. So riddle me confused, surprised, and a lot of other things.
I think people are looking at it on a literal sense and not looking at it as like the way we're looking at it. Like we're looking at it as if Caleb Martin or Dorian Finney-Smith are the reason why you're going to start believing in a general manager or a team president, then there's a lot more issues to go on.
You got problems.
Like that's how we're looking at it. I think they're looking at it as, that's going to make me feel like he hit every check mark in the offseason. Maybe I'm making excuses for everybody, but I feel like that's what they're looking at when we're looking at logically. Like, if this is what we're relying on, we got problems.
No, Chrome, I think you're right, and that's because we're big picture guys. They play checkers, we play chess.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't know. Right. I don't know what the other thought process is, because it's pretty clear. Like, you got to fill out the roster with some names. Are these the names that when you fill this roster out, you're like, okay, this makes me as deep as the other teams. Okay, if that's where you're thinking your head is, I'm not disagreeing with you. Where I lose it is the renew your faith. Like, my faith has a lot more things riding on it than Daryl Morey. Now, he's got to be the architect that puts the team together. And I got to wait and see what my faith is on him when we get there. But right now, I couldn't be happier with the job he's done. That's all my point is. So I don't know why this would renew it. Like, he did that when as soon as the bell rung. As soon as the bell rung, it was time to go. He was doing those things to make me say, okay, we see you, Daryl. Great job. That's where I'm like, how do you misinterpret this poll? I guess there's always ways.
Well, you and Luke and a lot of others talked about the fact that this was going to be, this was Daryl Morey's time. This was his opportunity. This was the first time that he's had cap space, roster spots, flexibility, draft picks, whatever. So, if I'm going to sit here and grade Daryl Morey's offseason to this point, it's an A. It's not an A+. Got to fill out that roster, but it's a solid A.
Absolutely.
I'm not a huge fan of Morey, and I'll admit he can sound like a dope at times in a press conference, but let's face it, he's not here to win a press conference. He's here to put the best team on the court to be a championship contender. All right. And, I'll give him credit where credit's due. And let's face it, it's a lot better than, like I alluded to earlier, than what we had in town with, Twittergate nonsense and, what was it? Sam Hinkie's good old 13-page resignation.
It's a classic Noah Eaton line. He's not here to win a press conference.
I think that listen, we talked in the offseason a bunch, and Luke is tremendous, and man, you talk about a guy that really knows the NBA. But now in hindsight, when I really learned more about how the new CBA agreement is, and then you see the trade for Mikal Bridges and how many assets were given up for a guy that's never been an all-star, may never be an all-star, and just be like a Tony Kukoc, almost like, a top role player type of a guy on a winning team. His idea of, we just need a bunch of really good role players and top level. I don't know that that's the way to go. And I think Daryl Morey had this vision. He knew his situation. He was able to clean the slate last year, and all he asked for was some patience. And at this point with this team, when we went through the process and everything else, to not give the guy, they were still competitive, but to not give the guy that couple of years to clear out Tobias, get rid of Doc, do all the other things that needed to be done. Let Maxey develop over a couple of years and now see what you can do with all this. To not be happy with, like Luke on Wednesday said, I'm still reserving to see what else they do. I mean, let's give credit where it's due. There's more to be done, and we know that, but you can't say what's been done is not a home run at this point.
Yeah, I can be lukewarm on PG all I want. Like but he's not coming here to be the carrier of my franchise. He's just coming here to be really good.
He's here to be the third guy. He knows it.
But he just needs to be really good. He doesn't need to be great. He just needs to be really good. Because if he's really good, we're better than really good. We're great. And that's all he needs to come here. But I agree with you. I mean, I'm not the biggest Daryl guy, but I've given him a lot of credit what he's done here. Some of the moves he's able to make to get out of contracts and what he was able to do to create this cap space this offseason, to be able to go go get a guy and other guys, right? And be able to fill out a roster. This is his first time being able to do that. So, I don't know what's not exciting, what you're not excited about this offseason and how you don't go into the rest of this offseason feeling really good. I just don't know how you don't do it.
To undo.
Marcus, we can't have Gary Trent. We appreciate the super chat real quick so we don't miss this one. I've been bringing up Gary Trent for years. I guess he can't. Nick's not allowed to coach him. These are things I was told. But
he hates Nick apparently.
Nick may hate him as well. But we appreciate the super chat, and I would take Gary Trent. So I'm not against Gary. It's a great name, but I brought it up 1,000 times, and I've gotten crushed over it. Crushed. I don't Google enough. You know what I mean? I don't Google. I think Brian's the one who.
You're not glued to the Twitter machine.
No, I think Brian's the one who told me I didn't Google. And he sent a super chat right here. Happy early fourth, fellas. Get me Haywood Highsmith as the cheap option for the
Didn't
fourth.
we have him at one point already?
All these other power forward options are too expensive. Then I feel like somebody said he's 6'2" after that.
I feel like we had Haywood Highsmith like 5 years ago.
Marcus Morris isn't going to be expensive. And I think they liked him here. And I thought he played well here when he was here. But to undo, and we've lived through this, right? As much as we like Billy King and what he did, by the time that championship run ended, they were in a really bad situation. And it took, years and years. And then they were going out and trying to take flyers on the Chris Webber. They were trying to patch it up with Chris Webber, Keith Van Horn, Glenn Robinson. We can go through the names.
All great names you're dropping there, Chrome.
Impossible to dig, and it was impossible to dig out of that, right? And you look at the situation that he came into with Ben Simmons and coming off of that playoff run, coming into the awful Tobias contract, and the fact that everybody resented the organization for not keeping Jimmy Butler when, by the way, it had nothing to do with Tobias. They had to keep one of the two. They chose to keep Ben Simmons as a young kid, and that's the reason why Jimmy Butler went. It had nothing to do with Tobias.
Mm-hmm.
But for everything they gave up, they had to keep one of the two, and they overpaid, right?
Yeah, that doesn't get enough attention, and it's because Jimmy Butler put out the tweet.
Right.
You chose Tobias over me.
Oh no, it wasn't a tweet. He said it. He said it.
Yeah, Brett Brown chose Ben Simmons over you.
Well, I don't
nothing to do with Tobias.
Listen, I'm gonna be. I can't knock them. At the time, Ben wasn't like fully,
right,
Kardashian yet. So at that point, you still saw the potential, right? And you thought, okay, like this is going to be the year because you see the off-season workout.
Off-season videos, yeah.
This is the year, right? And it just never got there, right? At that point, a 23-year-old Ben Simmons, who was a unanimous consensus number one overall pick, the next LeBron, blah, 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 like you can't look back and say, in hindsight, you could say, yes, Jimmy Butler is the guy you should have kept, 100%. But this idea that Tobias Harris had anything to do with it. The reason Tobias Harris was overpaid was because they chose Ben Simmons. And they could not let both of them walk because they would have been in a really bad situation then with everything they gave up.
Oh yeah, and I think you said one thing there that is really, really important is there is not a team in the NBA that if they were in the Sixers position wouldn't have taken him number 1 overall.
Nobody.
He was the pick. You know, we can debate the Markelle Fultz pick all day long.
By the way, bring him back if he wants to come back. I'm all for it.
It's funny because
He's become a pretty damn good player in Orlando.
Chuck can call me an asshat all he wants. If the Sixers front office does their homework on Ben Simmons and he's actually like mentally and physically okay to play, I'll bring him off the bench.
I don't. Tom hates this too. Tom says there's certain people we can't do. Thank you, Mike. I needed an ally because I mentioned this the last 2 weeks. I am in at the right price in the right situation, health-wise.
I'm not dangling a carrot for him, but he's another one. September,
if he's bought out and he's there, and in September he's still sitting there, I'm in.
And you can bring him off of your bench to play power forward because of his size.
I'm going to be a point guard. Anywhere, point guard, where he could play basically 4 positions.
I'm not in my feelings over him, not at all. Bring him back.
I let bygones be bygones. I went
Absolutely, you have to.
I went through the Albert Pujols thing, and guess what? I was fucking happy when he finally came back. But I digress. Listen,
we're wrestling fans. We've been turned on so many times.
Oh my God, we're like Vince McMahon, right? Well, not like Vince McMahon in that way, but we're like Vince, and where you know what? There's always a second chance if it's good, if it's best for business.
If it's best for business.
But listen. I just look at Daryl Morey and to come into the situation, and I mean the situation he came into, people don't realize how bad that situation was, and to within 3-4 years be able to undo all those things that were burdens on this organization and do what he's done. I mean, if you can't look at the Ben Simmons situation and then go back and look at the James Harden situation and see where they had no reason to get anything for either of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And not only do they go out and sign Paul George with the cap space they got from trading Harden last year and opening up all these expiring contracts, but they got assets. They got draft assets from the Clippers on top of it.
They fleeced the Clippers.
Yeah, how does that not prove to you that this guy knows what he's doing? He's had to go through a couple years of undoing a lot while trying to remain competitive.
And they essentially, it's so funny because they wound up forcing the Clippers to have to pay James Harden probably more than they wanted to get him to stay there, because you can't give up all the assets that they gave up to get him and not re-sign him. So all that money is now going to Harden, which means Paul George, could they have afforded to re-sign him? Maybe, but he elects to walk because he doesn't want to be there with James Harden. And where does he go? Right to us.
Listen, I mean, they didn't want to give him the 4th year.
Yep.
Fine. Honestly, by the 4th year, if they didn't win a title yet at that point anyway.
Yep, you're exactly right.
It is what it is. I'm giving him that extra year to ensure he comes here. So the next 2 or 3 years, we're making the run. And the next 2 or 3 years is Joel Embiid's prime. And after that, then again, now you're in a situation where now you start building towards Tyrese Maxey anyway. Paul George becomes an expiring contract at that point, which makes him a tradable asset at that point. There's a lot of things on the back end that people aren't considering.
Yep. Year 4, he's a tradable asset. You are spot on.
Yeah, I'm people are worried about, you don't want to pay him by year 4 when he's making $60 million or whatever the hell it is, $55 million. It's a tradable asset.
Yep, he's an expiring contract.
Jesus. Yep. In the NBA, if it doesn't prove that expiring contracts are more important than draft picks are at this point, then you just don't have a grasp on how the NBA works.
Right.
So it's an extremely smart move. Go make that run the next 2 or 3 years. If it stinks, move them after that 3rd year, and then Tyrese is still in his
or don't, and you got an expiring contract like you did with
Yeah.
Tobias.
and all that
So,
cap space opens up.
yeah.
You're exactly right.
That's why they didn't move Tobias when they probably had opportunities, because they were probably taking on more years than they wanted to with the groups of players, right? They were like, oh, well, this money, I'm not a guy with numbers, but this money's more money than it was if we just would have let Tobias walk. But now we're paying guys. We got another $25 million on the books for another 2 years after that. Now you're not allowed that flexibility. So this is a home run, man. It's a home run.
Yeah, but here's where Daryl is thinking two levels deeper than all of us too. Is let's just say, for argument's sake, and I really hope this doesn't ever come to fruition, but let's say for argument's sake, this team makes the determination that they're not going to pay Tyrese Maxey on a third contract. Well, when his second contract is up, McCain is ready for his second contract. You're basically backfilling Tyrese with McCain at that point. You know, Daryl's he's just out here playing chess. He knows what he's doing.
I'll tell you what, I don't think there's any chance in the world with, like, I heard this statement made the other day. I don't remember what, it was on one of the bigger networks. They said Tyrese Maxey might be one of the most liked professional athletes in all of professional sports.
Yep.
And he's talking about building an organization and marketing around a guy. I would be utterly shocked if he didn't make it to a third contract here, unless it was his choice to move on, which I don't see him being that type of kid. But, you know, you never know. I would be utterly shocked. But you are right. Daryl is thinking beyond way more than I think people realize that he is.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason.
And as for Tyrese, I think you're right, Chrome. The only hiccup I even see in all of this is if you look at the way Dallas is structured right now. When Tyrese gets to a point where he could hit free agency, Dallas should have a ton of money, and that's his hometown. So if he ever wanted to go back and play in his hometown, there's an opportunity. But I think, you know, this love affair that he's building with, you know, the Philadelphia fans, I mean, that's special.
Listen, there are guys that have their real life hometown, and there are guys that have, this is my professional sports, like, roots are buried hometown. And I mean,
yeah,
ever a guy that's going to be that way, like even beyond Embiid, who I think, despite some of the criticism, is one of the most loved Philadelphia professionals I've seen in my lifetime. I think Tyrese Maxey might surpass that at the end of the day. Like, he's a special kid, and it's not just the on the court; it's everything beyond that. And I think that's something that, you know, is going to be special to him. I think he knows and appreciates how loved he is in a tough city. If not, like New York, Boston, and Philadelphia, toughest cities to play in anything in professional sports.
I would go so far as to say, with this fan base, Maxey is on an Iverson trajectory.
I think beyond that.
I wouldn't disagree with you.
Court stuff.
I would not disagree with you at all.
I think that, you know, as much as people overlook things with Iverson and still love him, to not have any of that and be at the level he is, oh my God. I think he has the potential to be like a top 5. Like, I think he has the potential to be on a Kelsey level if he plays the majority or all of his career in Philadelphia.
They win a championship? Absolutely.
They might.
Yes.
And, you know, a guy like Maxey, he's going to keep working his ass off.
Never
Sure,
stop.
of course.
To get where to become as great as he's going to be.
I don't even think we're close to his ceiling yet.
Nope.
He's 23. You know
He's
what I mean?
23, and he's one of the most exciting players in the entire sport.
Well, just look at the way his game is
He's
developed
gotten
every
better
offseason.
each year.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Each year.
like tremendously noticeably better. Like,
Yes.
It's not like little things.
Yeah.
And I think
He's taking huge leaps and bounds.
well, I think there are parts of his game too where you look at it and you're like, if this is who he is the rest of his career, he's set. But he worked, and then the next year he gets better at that. It's just crazy to see this kid's work ethic. And again, like, I just think this team has two really good cornerstones. One that's, in his prime now, one that is not even approached his prime yet. And they bring in a great piece like a Paul George, and then on these other assets, I think this organization's really set up well for short-term and long-term success.
We're not talking about ability. We're talking about popularity.
Yeah, popularity.
Relax.
I think he's going to be Jordan or anything, but
yeah,
in terms of popularity, and I do think production will add into that, what he does end up doing numbers-wise. We're not saying he's like, he's going to be Gary Payton, but maybe he will be. But
yeah, I think it's hard when the popularity thing's hard, right? Because
subjective.
Because Iverson was like changed the whole culture of the sport. So like popularity, nobody in basketball essentially can mirror that. That's hard to do. Now to say in the city, that's really tough too. If you had the same career he had, it's hard to do that. Like it's hard to beat his popularity just because of what we were not like. Again, if Maxey wins one, then sure, all bets can be off, of course. But it's hard. It's a hard one because his popularity was different in this city too, right? So if we remember when he was his age, I mean that dude. Come on,
No, yeah.
It was big time. It was big time. It was the next big thing. I don't think we talk about Max like he's the next big thing. Like
maybe
that.
Maybe we should.
Maybe we will too, right? And I love Tyrese. I just don't want to. I think at times we can get caught up in what we're in, and just normally I do it plenty. Right?
And forget about what we had
and what we had. Like that dude, that was a whole different era of Sixers basketball.
That's fair.
We stunk. I mean, we were Clarence Weatherspoons and the likes. The spoons.
Sean Bradley.
Sharon Wright.
Right. I have his card somewhere. I have his card. He stunk out loud. Right. And it's the stuff we were dealt with. So when we got that pick.
I remember going to Sixers camp and Doug Overton was the feature.
Yeah. Dana Barros was a savior. Right. We were climbing for anything because the guy could score 50.
I think
we had Willie Burton out here dropping 50 spots.
I think my favorite obscure Sixer of all time might be Eric Montross.
So I just think it's different when we talk about.
Yeah, rest in peace, Eric.
I think it's tough.
He died young. He was 52, man.
Tough one. That's so funny though, Tom, that you brought up Dana Barros. It's like you just go back through like some of the recent history with the Sixers and look at guys for the Sixers who have dropped 50, and then some of the other guys that they've just picked up for like random stretches in a Sixers uniform. Crow mentioned a couple of them earlier. Crow, what were you talking about? Keith Van Horn? Tony Kukoc?
Yeah, when they were trying to do patchwork to keep that championship run, and they had Chris Webber they traded for, Glenn Robinson, Keith Van Horn.
Yeah, I actually forgot about Chris Webber for
Corey Blunt.
I forgot about the little dog. I forgot about the little dog, Glenn Robinson.
Yeah,
I forgot we got the little dog. That's what he was at that point, a little dog. He wasn't the big dog.
Did we have his kid too? Did we draft his kid?
I don't know if we drafted him, but we did have him at one point.
We had him at one point. I thought we drafted. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah,
did too.
But he
was on our roster.
My whole point. It's hard to ever compare any player to an all-time great or like popularity too. Like because popularity comes with greatness, right? So
right.
it's that dude trended on a different level. I don't even want to put anybody in his conversation because that's a whole nother that we could do this all night type deal. Like that's a whole nother conversation when you talk about Allen Iverson and popularity for the sport internally. That was ours. That was our guy. That early on was like a semi face for the league, right? Especially overseas. So there was so much more with him. But Maxey's special, and he's a grinder. And when you got grinders, anything's possible when you're talented. I say to my kids all the time, you go outwork cats, and you're talented. Well, who knows how far you can go? Let people tell you can't, and then prove them wrong all day, right? So and the benefit that Tyrese has, was he's playing with a great, right? So, you get that. He gets that ability to develop, which I think is important here too. So they're just different. They're different things. But popularity, he's a great kid. He's a worker. He's our type of guy, just like Allen was. Because Allen was a worker on a different level. Allen played nightly. He don't give a shit about practice. He told us that. But he'll show up nightly, right? He will. So
he ain't practicing, but he'll give you 48.
With a lunch pail and all, Mike. Like with a lunch pail and all. And then he'll go drop 48K in 10 minutes in the casino. His choice.
I'll say this with ability, though, when we're talking about on the court ability, the one thing I might even be there already. As unbelievably quick as Iverson was with his first step, Tyrese might be quicker.
I don't know about that.
Tyrese is lightning fast.
He's downhill fast. He's very quick. Don't get me wrong. When you're quick, right? But like, I think you need to YouTube yourself tonight. I think you're losing.
I would love to put a side-by-side clip of them doing a similar move and just look at how they.
It's different, man. Allen was different, though.
No, I mean that's it.
Allen was smoother.
That's the reason I became a Sixers fan.
Yeah, he was smoother, right? He was smoother. Like everything he did was looser. Tyrese is a tight quick. I don't know how to explain it. Like he's not his agility isn't as high as Allen's, so their quickness is different in a way. It's like I'm not trying to define quickness here, but right. You guys get like you know what I mean. Like I think you personally need to YouTube yourself late into your cocktails tonight. All right, late into your cocktails. You need to circle back and I'm not saying you forget, but you just need a little reminder, a refresh.
Forget. Listen, I grew up. I was actually, I was one of those fans in the NBA, which a lot of them are, where I was more fans of a player than a team, right? But I liked the Magic. I was a Shaq fan. And the first game I ever went to, I think I told you this, my mom was taking me to a game, and it was the Lakers versus the Sixers, Iverson and Kobe's second year. And I went in a Shaq jersey, and I went and saw Allen Iverson. I told my mother that day, I am getting an Allen Iverson jersey, and I'm going to be a Sixers fan from here on out. From my first game of going and seeing Allen Iverson, I was blown away by watching him. So I very vividly remember Allen Iverson. Despite all the off-the-court stuff, he's one of he's a guy that if you got a chance to watch him play live, and for some of these young kids who didn't get a chance to now, I feel like we're at that age now, Jesus Christ. It was something that, it was a special thing. Whether the team was good or not, he was that level of a player in this league. Outside of the cultural stuff. You nailed it with the culture.
SAM nailed this too, right? Iverson was so naturally talented and looked effortless. That was where I was trying to go with it. Maxey's lightning quick as well, but it looks more concentrated than AI. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason. And again, there's a reason you're the number one pick of the draft. There's a reason that you're going to change a franchise. Like Maxey was never picked to change a franchise because he's got to work harder than Allen did, per se, right? Because he doesn't have it. That doesn't mean he can't one day have the same type of numbers, right? It doesn't mean he can't have that. But I think the big thing with Allen was that he was generational. He didn't have to work to be generational. He walked on the court from college and was generational because that's how he was the percent that never happened, right? Of like how good he really was just from birth. Like, hey, pop that 30 and 40 was just walking in a gym. Like he didn't have to do anything else. He just walk in a gym. Oh, I'm talking about the first 5 years of his career. He didn't have to do shit. He could just walk in a gym and he's better than everybody else on the court.
No, and
like imagine that. Like I'm just talking like I wish I had like goodness gracious. Like you talking about hitting a lottery. I mean, that's a lottery. That's how gifted he was.
And to your credit too, right? I would when we talk about generational athletes, period, I might put him in the top 5 to 10 ever because he transcended the game in the way he played against in an era too. Let's not forget where there was a lot of big men, and it was a big men's game at that point. He was an extremely talented guy, and there's another great point by AJ there. He was a tremendous football player. He was just an athlete.
At 160. At 160,
I love how they used to-
he was better at football.
I love how they used to bill him at like 6'1", and it's like, this dude's not. He's 5'11". Like let's not kill ourselves here.
He was 5'11", 170 in the NBA.
I'll tell you what.
If you look at his real body, he's 5'11", 170.
I'll tell you the one thing, and I don't know if you guys remember this, but when I was a kid and watching games with Allen Iverson, I always used to laugh when they would put it up. NBC did it every time they had the NBA on NBC. They would put the graphic of Iverson up, doing
exactly
like a layup, and they would put the dots on all the injuries he was playing through that season. And they would be like, "This is just the first 4 months of the season. Iverson had a sore knee, a bruised hip," and they would literally every season they would do that.
Nobody had more contusions on their body than Allen Iverson.
And in that game, he would go out and he put up like a 37 spot.
Yeah.
Against Tim Duncan and the Spurs.
And like you never forget this too. And Maxey's getting the same treatment. Yeah, their little guys get hammered. Once Maxey starts getting the calls, his game's even going to go to another level up. It's going to level up. He just and I don't want to PTSD myself here, but what happened in that Knicks series is egregious. At home with an all-star player in this league, for him not to be getting at-home calls is a joke.
Mm-hmm.
Is a joke. It should never happen. And a lot of them were fouls when you watch them back. Can't happen again.
Spot on. Oh, it's funny though. Go back to the Iverson thing for a minute. People used to joke that he got all the tattoos and he wore the arm sleeves so that the opponents couldn't see his bruises.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want him targeting anything.
Just target the whole body. There's something somewhere. You know what I mean? That's what they got to it down the line. They're like, listen, there's an injury somewhere. This guy was in the casino at 6 a.m. You're gonna let this guy come drop 35 on you. Casino to 6 a.m. Come drop 35 on guys.
I'm telling you, ever since I was a kid and I saw them graphics every friggin' Sunday or whenever the Six would be on, I always watch when they talk about guys. I never, to this day, have ever seen anything like it. He would have like 8 pinpoints that they would put on there, and it was every season. And he would go out there and play 76, 77 games in a season. And you can't take that away. That's an all-time effort.
Yeah, when we talk about what we like in this city and what we talked about load management and everything else, that's one guy who definitely didn't go by that.
No, his load management took place at the Hula Hands on City Line Avenue.
Load.
It's so true. Just different. Like everybody in the chat saying he's just different because he's just different. Nobody can do that. Right? The great Michael Jordan couldn't do that. There's guys who cannot do that. And sometimes that's a gift and that's a curse too. And I think on Allen's tail end of his career, it became a curse because he didn't do the things he needed to do to take care of his body. He didn't put the extra in, which probably could have extended his career another 3 years. Could have probably made him have some walking around money before he turned 50 and from his Reebok deal kicking in. But, Allen's special. But listen, back to the poll. Like again, I'll take both of those guys. I'll take either one. I mean, if he somehow got both of those guys, then if you want to talk about, renewing faith. I mean, it's not going to renew faith in Daryl. It's just going to say, this roster is deep, and this roster can compete with anybody. And I'm not crowning those two guys. I'm just saying, getting both of them, I would say at this point in free agency would be just an add-on to your homer, which would make it a grand slam.
If I was to amend the poll question, I would replace the word renew with solidify. Because I do believe in him. I have believed in him. But again, I think he's checked the boxes without question for what the needs were. I like Martin a little bit more than Finney-Smith for this team. But if he was to get either guy, again, to me, I would replace renew with solidify, and then I could agree to the poll. Renew, disagree. Solidify, absolutely. 1,000 times over.
That's fair.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with
Thanks
that.
for chiming in,
Thanks,
Tim
Aaron.
Martin. We appreciate you, brother. See you next week.
Yeah, Mikey probably would have been the goat if he was 6'6" AI for sure. For sure. But I listen, we all talk about it a million times. We love the moves they made. There's still some things to do. And we'll see how the rest of this offseason shakes out and where we're at. But right now we're a contender. So that should make people at least feel good. I mean, we're used to just trying to look for reasons to feel good in the offseason of the Sixers. And here we are again, but at least we have some more optimism and some excitement again.
So I decided to look just out of curiosity because I think it's a fair statement to say that there are 3 sports in Philadelphia this season or upcoming season for teams that you could possibly be on. So I did look at what it would be to just do a parlay of all 3 teams just making the championship. It's a pretty decent payout.
I assume you're talking Phillies, Eagles, Sixers.
Absolutely. You throw a 5 spot on there, get a couple G's out of that.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
I'll take it.
Brian, what's the issue here? I mean, because I was all in on Jimmy. Like I'm still all in on Jimmy. I love Jimmy. I'm not running from loving Jimmy. I don't know. I'm just telling you that he's had a great offseason here. And PG was a guy you could get without giving up assets. Like, okay, then I'm good with it. I never forget about Jimmy. He's always going to be the one that got away.
I love Brian, and Brian, we appreciate you popping every week, comment like crazy, and love it. But you're just going to be that guy. I feel like that's just good things are happening, and we're moving forward, and you're just going to keep throwing it back.
Circling around.
That's it.
What about Jay Crowder? Carter Boy Fresh Ass.
Dog Crowder?
Jay. I'm sure he means Jay.
Okay. I was like, is that a new nickname?
Old. I did.
Yeah.
I don't love the name.
It's another one I don't hate. I don't love it either. I'm very neutral on that name.
Yeah, I would be like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. All right.
I don't think it would be a detriment to the team. But it's not anything I'm like, yeah, go out and get it. Like Caleb Martin to me, I'm like, yeah, if you can get him, go get him. Crowder, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Bobby Porter's available.
I love Bobby Portis.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that he's available, but if he is, that's a great name.
Yeah, I love Bobby.
We love Bobby.
I love Bobby since Chicago, where he wasn't taking no shit in practice and throwing fists. Take it all day. Let's go.
Bobby Portis was like my FanDuel sleeper until he wasn't anymore.
Yeah.
I every lineup I had started with Bobby Portis, and then all of a sudden he just got way too expensive.
Yeah.
All right, and let's end this conversation here too. All right, enough with Twitter and some Sixers fans even bringing up the biggest pussy cat that ever come through the city of Philadelphia.
Oh, you missed our conversation earlier.
He must have been tuned out on that one.
No,
I wasn't.
He stepped away for a minute.
Yeah, that's when I went to the bathroom. Probably. I didn't hear it. I seriously didn't hear
it.
it.
No, you weren't here. Yeah, you stepped
away. It would have been good bathroom talk.
Good. I mean, how are we okay? Like, are we now? We're really forgetting. Now we're really, you're stop.
Perfectly fine.
Stop. What do we do?
There's two of us
in on. What are you guys in on?
Listen, I'm not saying I'm going like, okay, go out of your way.
Right.
But
sounds like you're going out of your way.
In September,
you personally are going out of your way.
If he is bought out, and there is an opportunity to bring that kind of a defensive level and the guy who can distribute the ball like that for the second unit, I'm in 20. Listen, at the end of the day, I want to get the broad, Tom. I can forgive him for I can't forgive, but I can forget it when it comes to that. At that point, listen, I told Mike, I equate this to I went through the Albert Pujols abandoning us and talking shit on the way out the door. And guess what? When he came back, I was all for it. Let's go. Because I can get over it real quick. If you can help me win a title, if you could stay on the court and you could bring what you do have, we don't need you to score at that point. Just come out here and manage that second unit and fucking stop somebody on the court, which we know he could play some all-NBA defense. I'm in. If I'm going to give up a ton of money, I can get him at a cheap price because he's bought out. I'm in.
See, and
he folds back.
Tom, I think that's the big sticking point here is, like, do I want to pursue him per se? No, absolutely not. But to Chrome's point, if he gets bought out and he's available and, you know, Morey and Nurse do their due diligence, you know, he passes a physical, they put him through the psychological exam, you know, they you know, he sits down with Joel, he does all the reconciliation stuff, and you could get him on the cheap. That's basically a 6'10" guy that can defend all 5 positions on the floor and run point for your second unit. If his name's not Ben Simmons, we're clamoring for a guy like that. But because his name is Ben Simmons, you know, we're all up in our feels.
No, we're not up in our feels. No. We're not
real
up in our
quick,
feels.
the first name you brought up too, Mike.
Don't forget about this.
Joel Embiid is signing off on that.
Oh, yeah.
Joel Embiid.
You guys are hitting me with, Joel's signing off on and all this. If we got to that point, it's a different conversation. We're not even at that point. The fact that we're even bringing, of all the names to bring up, he even is mentioned through everything else until September. If you want to bring him up in September, be my guest. But that name should not be mentioned when you talk Philadelphia 76ers basketball and Ben Simmons. There ain't no forgetting or forgiving.
He's not coming back here.
If he came back here, I want the biggest apology tour of all time because he quit on his teammates, he quit on the organization, and he quit on the city. And you know that's factual. I don't care about not shooting. I don't care about the rest. I care about the quit job that took place. To take my ball back to Australia and shrimp on the Barbie. I remember everything that this cat did.
He didn't quit on the city because he was never invested in the city in the first place.
Still felt like he quit on us. But he quit on his teammates for sure.
Listen,
he was never interested in playing basketball.
I said earlier he was more interested in being a Kardashian than he was in being an NBA player.
Correct.
I understand that. But at the end of the day, not expecting him to be more at this point in his career, but knowing what he is, and if the price is right, and if Joel, he's on this team and he does what Mike said, right? Because if he's on this team, obviously Joel signs off on it. That is more than enough for me because I know what he can bring defensively and on the second unit as far as distributing the basketball. Particularly, we're talking about Jared McCain developing, right? You want a guy who's going to find him at his spot on the court. That is Ben Simmons.
It's the greatest reclamation story in the history of
sports. It might be the greatest story of all time, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, until he's got a wide open jumper and passes it up.
You know what? I love a great reclamation story and a comeback story. I'm in. I'm buying in now. I'm all in.
Clearly, my internet gods don't because they just shorted me out for a second.
They know we're getting crazy here.
He's got that Craig Snowden.
Listen, nobody ever debates the talent of Ben Simmons. You can bring up all these other things. Ben Simmons still believes he's great and he's better than everybody else, right? And that problem and the way that's
a big problem
going about his business in the NBA world is not great. Not great at all. And that's being nice. So listen, you're talking about putting your tail between your legs. You're talking about checking your ego at the door. You're talking about a lot of things that cat ain't never done. And now we think now we think all of a sudden he have to get that first before anybody even talks to him. And even after that, like, how do you, I don't know, organization, like, how are you selling that?
Man, when nobody else wants you, sometimes you just got to suck it up.
I'm leading the charge.
That's atrocious. Like I said, you are clamoring for him. That's the difference.
Now I am. You've convinced me to clamor for him. Now let's go.
So according to Chuck's, we would be the Ass Hat brothers.
I'm fine. I'm
Correct.
all in. I'm happy.
Correct.
When have I ever shied away from being an asshat? I don't give a shit about that. No.
No, I just think this
I've
is
had,
now.
I've had bolder takes than that on this station. And
No,
some-
clearly.
So
I thought I was the only asshat at this station.
No, this is how this city.
You're
this is
like
how
a
this city
different level
operates.
asshat, though. Like you're like our endearing asshat, and we love you. Now.
This is how
Love you
we
too,
operate
bro.
at times. We operate
Hey,
like this. At
By the
times.
way, your St. Louis Cardinals don't look that bad. If the season ended today, they'd actually make the fucking wild card.
Well, fire the
ridiculous.
manager. That's a conversation for fire the manager.
So, Tommy, take this back for a second, because I do need to plead ignorance for a second here. So I saw I saw the post from Chuck's about Simmons, but where did the Simmons talk start in the first place? Like, who dropped that name as a potential for the Sixers?
I've
Well,
heard
on-
that in multiple places.
On here it was Chrome or Greg. It was one of the two.
I was gonna guess Brian Colangelo, fake burner account.
But I mean, is this something that was like floated on social and started to pick up traction? Or
I guess so. I think it started on Twitter, obviously, where people just started talking about bringing him back. And
Well, don't forget. I think it was it last year he did an interview where he basically said he would like to come back to Philly. It's like if there was a place he was going to be other than Brooklyn, Philly, he would like to come back. I think part of it was Doc leaving. When Doc was gone, he did an interview after. And that's not an excuse, by the way. I think that's bullshit. That being said, I'm looking at what this team is now, where his role would be, and what it would bring, and I'm in. And all you in the chat, I love it. Keep it coming. Bring it on.
It would bring
On this hill now.
It would bring lots of headaches.
my 6'10" point center.
Oh my God, we're doing
I'm in. I'm in.
Like, we're in this again.
I'm going with you, Chrome. I'm in.
Here comes magic. Here comes magic. Here he comes.
I'm
I can't
converting him
believe
little
I
by
can't.
little.
Yeah.
I'll have Tom by the end of it. Although I tried for years to get him on the Zach LaVine train, and that didn't happen. But I'm all in on that.
Greg said last week about an hour in, we talked about Toby and
That's
Andrew
right.
Ben returning.
That's where our
Chat
chat
went
was
bananas.
last week. Yeah, you're
Yep.
right. It's going insane right now too. People think I'm crazy. I'm in.
Yeah, Ben Simmons is the latest athlete in the history of professional sports. Matthew, you're talking. I mean, that sums that up. Puccinella, all chrome, no brakes.
I'll tell you what.
Hit the brakes
I've
a little
never
bit.
seen my name.
Wait. The laziest athlete in the history of sports.
I've never seen my name thrown in the chat
right.
more than this moment right now.
Has
And I'm
anyone
all-
seen Pablo Sandoval lately?
Oh God.
That may be the laziest athlete in the history of sports.
He's not going to shoot free throws. He's not going to start. He's not going to be in crunch time. That whole
Yeah,
free
like,
Now we're
people
back to
think
this
we're
again.
signing off on him coming back as like the starting point guard. No, he's going to be
No.
an 18. He's going to be an 18-minute a night guy, or else he's not here.
Exactly. He'll be there when you need somebody defensively.
Tom's going to have a conniption.
He'll be there when you need somebody that's going to quit on the team.
Tom's like, who are these two? I didn't raise these two this way.
Christ.
I can't.
I don't know.
Sorry, I'm with Tommy here. There is no
This was
fucking
not on
way
my
you
bingo
can-
card. This is
there's
not on my
no
bingo
fucking
card.
way you can bring this asshole back to
Did
Philadelphia.
we forget what the D and A2D stands for?
That's right. And this, I'll tell you what. This isn't even like this isn't even like a hot like.
No, this is hot. This
isn't for show. I'm convincing. As this show's going on, I'm buying in more and more. I'm in.
Jesus.
Yeah, I can't believe you're doing this to yourself right now. I can't believe we're talking about in crunch time him playing defense. Like we're like that's what Chrome like.
I got beachfront property for you, Chrome, in Grand Isle, Nebraska.
Can't wait.
Man, as long as we don't expect him to take a wide open dunk, we're fine.
That's it.
Good Lord.
Low expectations.
Best second unit backcourt in the league. Jared
Oh my
McCain
God.
and Ben Simmons. Let's go, baby.
Yeah, that's the issue. Yeah.
Like Jimmy Lyman would say, they got size. Can't teach size.
Right, we're talking about Jared McCain's size. How do you counteract that?
Oh my God, we're doing this.
Oh my Lord.
I mean, can we have a better
doing this? Are we doing
backcourt
this?
mate then?
Oh, we're just
backcourt
taking it down
mates?
the rabbit hole now.
Would you not say
somebody
backcourt?
tries
Can
to-
you not say backcourt mates right now, please?
He
He's not
needs some.
backcourt mate.
Jared McCain needs somebody
These
with size who's going to find him in his spot, who's going to be able to distribute the basketball. Guess who that is?
I care less what Jared McCain does off the court, but like I cannot have him and Ben Simmons like running my Sixers social media. I just can't.
I'm in. Even more in.
Oh,
Oh, I can't wait.
I didn't even think about that, Tommy, but that's brilliant. That is hysterical.
That's
Fellas,
everything
I
we're
got a
looking
call
for.
tonight.
And we're gonna be following you in a minute too.
All right, Noah.
Happy 4th, boys. Everybody
yeah.
out. Everybody out there in internet land, be safe.
Enjoy
Don't do
celebrating
it.
America, Noah.
Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Happy 4th.
You too, brother.
All right.
McCain's TikToks was Ben's summer workout writings. Those videos would be movie quality. Yep.
Yeah,
Oh.
we're talking a high quality family entertainment in the city of Philadelphia. If that happens,
Sixers
Oh.
season never ends with those two guys in the off season.
Oh my God. I couldn't even imagine.
I feel like we're getting Tom on board though. He's not going to say
No.
it yet.
No, I'm not on board. No.
he's fighting it. He's
No.
fighting it, but we're gonna get him.
You
We're
guys
gonna get
are,
him. We're a real
listen, you
man.
guys are trying your best here. I give you guys a lot of credit for this. You know, you guys are really working hard.
Listen, we came with some ammo, right? Like
No, I mean, not
we're
really.
not completely illogical.
I mean, this guy's got. I got a bulletproof truck over here. Ain't none of your ammo's getting through here when it comes to him. So you're gonna have to find a different route in. But you know, oh my God, I just couldn't imagine.
What if his name was like Den Lemons? Would you be okay with it?
He just changes his whole
He just he rebrands his entire life. I'm in.
Yeah. Okay. If you're going through the effort of that, if you're willing to go through the effort of that, like then maybe I'm in. Like if you're totally changing names and you got to change your passports and it's a makeover, right? It's a total makeover.
That's
So,
a commitment. That's a big
that's
You
a
know,
commitment.
changes his name, doesn't bring his sister with him. You know,
Oh, I
stays
forgot.
off the socials.
Oh, I forgot all about her. Oh my God.
Hits a
There's so
3
much.
on opening night. Oh wait, he did that already.
Yeah, we did. We're done with that. No, I am out. But that was a great show, boys. That was a great show.
This was a great time, boys.
Nothing better to go into the holiday with.
Yep. Ray and D guy, or actually just the D guy. We got our 3 and D and PG. Who better to put it in after him?
America.
American Ben Simmons. Go hand in hand.
America and Joel Embiid play for that Olympic team. Learn how
Shout
to be
out
a
to-
winner.
Shout out to the chat tonight, too. You guys were all tremendous. Tremendous. I got people trying to trade me with Paul Reed. I'm in. Whatever.
You're trying to what? What did you say?
There's people in the chat
Chrome
trying
and
to
Paul
trade
Reed
me
for a
in
bag of
package
balls.
with Paul Reed. Oh,
Poor
man. I
Paul
hope it
Reed.
happens because we're going to have so much content to pull back
Oh
from.
my God.
It's going to be brilliant.
You do.
Come on, Daryl. You haven't disappointed me yet. Let's
Oh
go.
my God! Stop. Now you're clapping.
Wait. Now you're begging for it. Come
Yeah.
on.
Now you're. It's too much. All right. It's too much.
Listen,
Like you were here. Now you're here.
we're talking
Let's,
about
let's bring it back down a little bit.
we're talking about renewing faith. I lose faith if this doesn't happen.
Oh yeah.
No solidification. None.
No solidifying.
He's out. He's out.
Unsolidified.
It's Ben or bust. It's Ben Franklin or bust. Oh my God.
Long live 2-5.
Presidential bout 24. I love it.
Yeah, me drinking one.
That's fair. That's fair.
Probably came with Martin because he's cheaper. Ted, thanks for a super chat. And he says happy 4th, guys. And he said
Happy
Joey
4th.
ate Ben. Yeah, Joey does hate Ben.
I think
So.
DeRozan goes either to LA. Well, I guess not LA now because LeBron would have had to take a pay cut. I think he might end up in Miami. I don't know that his price drops low enough for the Sixers to be able to afford him.
Oh my God, my face hurts from laughing so much. I'm not even gonna lie.
I know.
My face legitimately hurts right now. It's hysterical.
That is great. Yeah, it's awesome. All right, boys. Let's get out of here. That's Mike Mataraki. That's Teal Chrome. I'm Tom Arnone. We'll see you next Wednesday night and maybe even more Sixers to talk about. If not, we'll be diving into Phillies. They're hot. We don't even have to talk about best team in baseball. That's how we end it. So good. So good. We're not even talking about them. That's what happens when president of basketball operations gets to work. So let's go. We're out. Happy 4th, everybody. Be safe. Just let a pro light the firework for you.